Yeah. Well, you know, names are hard. So, anyways, all right. So, Anne, tell me, like, okay, let me back up for a second. So, we were talking just a second ago about how you and I met going through the CCA. We both learned the certainty operating system. We got the four wealth commandments. We've got the frames, the issue processors, the growth principles, just like the infinite number of Randyisms. And yeah, just an amazing course. It was like what? It was like a 22, 24 week course
Yeah.
that we did. It was like 6 months. But it was, for me, it was one of the most impactful things I've gone through. Tell us a little bit about your experience. How was the certainty operating system? How has that benefited your business? How has that benefited you in your life?
First of all, I want to say it was 100% a fire hose to the face every single week.
Yeah.
And going from that and, utilizing that and bringing it into the real world and into business and into even my personal life, right, it just made such an impact and made such a difference. And I've spent years going through personal development and just, doing a lot of personal education because I'm always looking to be the best version of myself. Right. And so I truly believe that, going through CCA was one of the most impactful things. And I think that the rewards will be exponential year over year forever. Because it's all with how we interpret and how we are able to utilize those principles within our daily life. I would say that one of the biggest impacts that it had on me in my life is first of all, my communication, right? And I communicate in a very specific way. And, it has allowed for me to understand and really learn to play my game, right? Because I've spent so much time catering to what other people think and what other people believe, rather than just playing my game and saying, look, this is the way that I communicate. This is the way that I am. And I understand that that may not be a popular way of communicating, but this is how it is. So let's go ahead and we can recognize it and put it out on the table and say, hey, this is how it's going. This is how I'm going to communicate. And I don't want it to be, offensive, and I don't want it to be any of these other things, but it is, that's just the way that I communicate, and I need to be able to play my game. Because without us each playing our individual game, now we start getting in the trap of playing somebody else's game. And as we continue to do that, we get to a point where we don't even recognize who we are anymore. Right. Because we spend so much time playing somebody else's game. So one of the really cool things that I learned was about diffusion of responsibility and learned helplessness, and realizing that a lot of the issues that we've had within our business, within our communication, has been around diffusion of responsibility and learned helplessness, where rather than teaching our employees to go ahead and find information for themselves, right, what we have learned to do is just say, oh, the easiest way is for me to just give them that little piece of information. It's not going to harm anything. It's just this one little piece of information. And then the next time, well, it's just this one little piece of information. But what we're doing is I'm actually training my employee to become dependent rather than being an independent individual. Right. And learning to find those resources and find that information for themselves before they actually come and actually need assistance. So then I turn around and I get upset because I'm like, oh, why are my employees so dependent? Well, I've actually created that environment for them. Right. And so that's just one of the like huge things. And it was just like this big aha moment. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how long have I been doing that? How many different places in my life am I creating that dependence? Right. And creating an environment in which I need to be the savior.
Yeah, one of the things I found so helpful about the CCA, which was what we've started doing in the Whale Club, which is the 6-word updates and the case and points. Why that was so powerful is because you get to hear how other people interpreted the same information, right? Like what I enjoyed so much about, learning from you and other people in this is we were listening to the exact same presentation, and everybody came away with different case and points. Everybody heard it slightly differently related to their life. It's a version of play your own game. That's totally okay. But I don't know. I found that extremely valuable to engage with other people, to hear how other people heard the same information. What do you think?
I completely agree. And the whole point of the 6-word updates and the case and points, the 6-word update is actually taking all of the information, because we have a tendency as a society to continue to talk until we're validated. right? But what it does is the 6-word update basically for me said, okay, you're going to take all of this information that is going through your brain and, you know, the rapid firing, and it's going to cause you to slow down, really have a collective thought and say, this is the most impactful thing, and actually really consolidate all of that information and all of those thoughts into one statement. So I completely agree with the 6-word update. The case in point, it really allowed for me to reflect on a lot of places where whatever topic we were discussing in that week, it allowed for me to go back and say, where has this been applied? Where is this being applied in my life? Right. And
Or
how
misapplied too, right? Like
exactly, misapplied is more to the point, is misapplied in my life. And I'm like, okay, or in my business, or, you know, in this relationship, or whatever, wherever it is applicable. But how has it been misapplied? And how could a change in myself have created a different outcome? And so in doing that case in point, it starts to help you to realize when those types of situations come up again. And now you're like, oh, I remember I had a case in point exactly like that. I'm going to change the way that I'm going to operate in this particular situation and see what that change does. Right. And so just making those, we call it micro stepping. So you just make those little micro steps, and eventually you're making these vast differences or these vast changes in yourself and in the way that everything is operating around you.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's fairly simple. Like this isn't rocket science. You know, we say this all the time, like closer versus more, solvable problem, bias micro steps. Okay, I got that. That's fairly intuitive in a lot of cases. But the real power is in having these things that you can run checks on your life through, right? Like actually being able to walk through and say, well, although that may be intuitive, and although you may think you're a fairly rational person, your behavior may indicate otherwise, right? So we hear these things and we're like, oh yeah, that's obvious. But look at your decisions, look at your life, look at all of the things you've decided on, and have they been serving you? Are they getting you closer to the things that you want? And you've mentioned a bunch of really good examples with that, but you know, that framework of being able to filter your decisions, filter your actions through, that's what was most powerful for me. And you know, I'm such a pleasure to hear your perspective on things as well. So
thank you. Yeah, same. I mean, we've had, every time that you and I have had a conversation, we've met in person, we just have so much to say. And what's amazing about the CCA for me is that I have a tribe and we all have a common language. So now when I walk in and I say, oh man, I've got this, you know, I've got this thing that's going on, and I say, hey, I need somebody to kind of bounce some ideas off of. Hey, I'm realizing that there's some diffusion of responsibility that's going on, or hey, I need some help with my barbell, I'm just not seeing it. And you're like, no problem, let's sit down and we'll chat it out. And then you can help me, because we have a common language. You can speak my language and kind of help me to walk myself through a specific, you know, ideology or a specific principle where I may have gaps.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about, again, going back to your 6-word update, you know, it's realizing that we all see things through different lenses. So we're all seeing it from a different perspective. So you're going to have a very different understanding and knowledge of what, you know, the barbell is going to be, or, you know, the investor frame, because of the experiences and the lens that you're looking at it through. And that's going to help me to better understand and give me another perspective and provide me some of that aha. But I love the fact that we have a common language.
Yep. Well, and what we're doing as part of the Whale Club is we're taking this 20, however many weeks it was. I've lost count after however many weeks. We're taking that content and we're bringing it into a 6-week program, right? So we're not going as deep as we did in the CCA, but we're using this certainty operating system to stay high level, so that we can establish that common language with everyone in the club, so that we're all speaking the same words, right? We can communicate entire concepts with a single phrase, and that's the power of it. So if you guys want to learn more about what Anne and I are talking about here, you can check out blockchainwhales.com. You know, we're going to be continuing to put out these videos every single week with people talking about how this has impacted their life, how this has impacted their business. If you want to learn more about it, you can check out the free stuff that we've got. We've also got another cohort coming up here soon. And if you're interested, you can get involved with that too. So Thank you, Anne. I really appreciate you coming in. I always appreciate your perspective and enjoy hearing it. So thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.